So, let me start again. Hi, I'm Mr. Creepypasta. I tell scary stories on the internet. I make people online afraid using my mouth and throat. How's it going? I've been doing this for about 15 years. I've also been doing live performances and things like that for about 15 years. But I'm going to be making this performance a little bit special. I'm making it a little bit different for you guys. It's not going to be the same as it has been in the past. In the past, I used to always tell 3 different stories. I always used to talk about what makes up horror. I would talk to you guys about gross stuff, about horror stuff, about terror stuff. But this time, I'm not going to be doing that. I have 2 stories lined up. And I've got these 2 stories because tomorrow I have another live performance in San Antonio, Texas, where I'm going to be telling scary stories. So you guys are the guinea pigs. We're going to find out if you guys actually enjoy these stories, and if they're able to be done in the amount of time that I need them to be done. You guys cool with that?
Yeah.
I'm going to assume, yeah, okay, cool. I like seeing the hand movements. I like seeing you guys do those things. Also, if you guys are like done up with your Halloween costume this time, you guys look good. I like what I'm seeing. I like what I'm seeing. So, the 2 stories that I have here, normally these would be 2 different stories that I would actually tell about terror. Because I think what you all tend to really like are stories that are a lot more of, I hate using the word, but a psychological horror story, something that really kind of gets in your mind. And I want to be able to do something that really kind of sticks with you, especially later on tonight when you guys are going to be going to bed, when you're laying there in bed or with your VR headset on in one of your quiet worlds. I want you to be able to think about this. This story is one of the most cinematically interesting stories, I think, that I've ever done on the channel. It's written by Dead and Spread, and this is a story called Voices in the Spirit Box.
Ooh. Oh. Nice.
When I was 17, my mother was murdered. But this story isn't about her. See, my mother's killer is still in prison for his crime. This story is about what happens afterwards. About a year after my mother's funeral, my dad started mentioning that she would come to visit him at night. He said that she glowed in a pure white light and reached out to him with a warm smile on her face. He said that she looked just the way that she did the last time that he saw her, before she left for the store on that last night of her life. My sister and I both missed my mother very much. I mean, we wanted to believe that this was true. So we did whatever we could to try and contact her, but it was only my dad who ever really saw her. I mean, we wanted to say goodbye. Ouija boards, spirit boxes, automatic writing, psychics, mediums, we tried all of it, and all of them proved to be little more than distractions. About 3 months into our efforts, my dad had his first blackout. See, he claimed that it was just stress, but my sister and I, we agreed in confidence that it was more than that. He would forget things all the time, talk about old memories out of the blue, and then he started getting these horrible migraines. We didn't learn the source of it all until he finally agreed to go to the doctor. He had a brain tumor. It was inoperable. So, his doctor told us it was likely the source of all that he'd been experiencing, including those hallucinations of his dead wife. My sister and I, we lost all hope in ever saying goodbye to our mom, and instead we focused on our dad. By then I was nearly 19, my sister was 22. She ended up moving back in with Dad and me to help take care of him, and the treatment, he only lasted 6 months, which was 3 months longer than those. When my dad finally passed away, we were both devastated. I could still remember the night so vividly in my mind, the loneliness, the realization that both my parents were gone, and it was worse to realize that in all of our attempts to find proof of some kind of afterlife, we found nothing. Dad's last words to the both of us was about to find. She's telling me to come with her. She looks so beautiful. My actual story starts about a year later, though, when I finally decided to move out of my parents' house and in with my longtime girlfriend. Alex! I could hear my sister yelling from me downstairs. She had moved back in with her boyfriend months ago, but she was home to help me pack up the last of our parents' things, for either sale or donation. Alex, what do you want to do with these dishes? I poked my head out of my half-packed room and yelled downstairs, donate! What? I sighed, and I went bounding down the stairs, taking the last 5 in a single jump, landing in the hallway. My sister stood in the kitchen doorway and repeated her question. What do you want to do with all these dishes? Donate. Clean your ears, Lily. I could hear you just fine. Are you telling me to clean something? Because that's a fucking laugh. Lily. Donate. Clean. Followed her into the kitchen and saw her staring down at a beige plate decorated with a chicken and 2 ears of corn which sat below its feet. It was from the kitchening set. I remember sitting down to dinner every night to those plates in front of me. I think I want to keep one of these. Lily's eyes had misted over, and I knew how she felt. It was the little things that seemed to catch you, you know. I smiled, I walked over to her, I put her shoulder. Yeah, you should. Yeah. And you know, too, okay?
Not paying attention.
She looked up at me and smiled. And then felt something whiz between our heads at high speed and heard it crash against the far wall just with cat clock. Lily nearly dropped the plate that she was holding as she would jump and yelped just out of our family moment. I could feel my heart beating a mile a minute. The fuck was that? Lily yelled, setting the plate down on the kitchen table and stepping back towards the wall. She bent down and disappeared behind the tablecloth for a second before re-emerging with a piece of broken plate in her hand. She had a confused look on her face, one that I must have mirrored. We were the only 2 people in the house. No one else could have thrown that plate. On the sliver of porcelain Lily was holding, I could see a chicken's foot, raising up from behind an ear of corn. It was from the same set that we had been discussing. You've got to be kidding me, I said, turning my head to glance at the cupboard full of dishes and then back at Lily. She shrugged and gave me the, I don't know, look. And that's when I noticed that the familiar ticking from my mother's cat clock had stopped. I looked up at the wall behind Lily and noticed the cat's tail had stopped swinging and its always shifting eyes had frozen in place. And it was staring directly at me. I shivered involuntarily and I went to help Lily pick up the pieces of broken dish scattered about the kitchen floor. Now that plate incident, that reminded us of all of our efforts to contact our mother. I mean, in all of our attempts, we never saw anything even remotely paranormal happen. Yet here we were, face to face with an event that neither of us could explain. It didn't take long to decide to pursue it. The incident had also cast doubt on that theory that my father had been hallucinating prior to his death. In our desperation, we eagerly jumped on the small chance to talk to them one last time. I know now that hope can be as dangerous as it is comforting, though. Lily and I, we went to our significant others and we explained what we were going to attempt. We wanted to give the Ouija board and the spirit box one more try. Now, Carla was open to the idea when I told her about it. She actually seemed kind of excited. Lily had a harder time with David. As she related to me, she had to, quote, drag him along kicking and screaming. But in the end, he showed up, and I knew that even if he didn't buy into any of it, he would at least be there for my sister. 2 nights later, we all gathered at my parents' house. And at the time, we were excited. We were giddy. We had no idea what we were signing up for. If we had, I would have walked away from that place and never looked back. Is everyone ready? Lily asked, her fingers already resting on top of the planchette. Carla looked at me, green eyes that darkened to a near black in the dim orange candlelight. She winked at me and put her hands on the planchette next to Lily's. Then I placed my fingers on the other side of the plastic toy and did my best to ignore the disapproving look on David's face. He had reluctantly agreed to be our scribe, just writing down words that might be spelled out during our seance. Lily started moving the planchette around the board in the infinity shape, like we had always done before. I could feel that same excitement welling up inside of me, like it had the first time we tried this. I could see the same fervor reflected on my sister's expression. What now? Carla whispered over the board. Now, we ask some questions. Lily held her head high like she was trying to channel some kind of divine energy. My sister always got a little bit too into the theatrics of the whole thing. Is there anyone here with us? I took the lead. We all watched the board with bated breath, hoping to feel some movement beneath our fingers, and suddenly, the infinity-shaped motion stopped, and we watched the planchette move slowly across the board towards the top left corner before stopping at the word yes. Okay, are you guys fucking with me? Because I didn't do that. Carla was looking at me again. I could see her out of the corner of my eye. I was stunned. In the millions of times that we tried this, nothing had ever really happened at all. No, we aren't fucking with you. Ask another question. Lily's voice had gone up at least 2 octaves, and she was smiling like a crazy person. It was the same look that she would get on Christmas morning when we were kids, the joy of discovery and the satisfaction of finally getting what you've been waiting for. What's your name? I asked, diving right in. This was the moment of truth. I was surprised at just how fast and how quickly the planchette started moving around the board. We called out each letter as the planchette briefly stopped, and I heard David scribbling away. I, T, S, D, A, D, D, Y. It's Daddy. David murmured the words in a voice that contradicted his previously cool demeanor. Lily's hand left the planchette and she slapped them across her mouth. I could see her eyes quickly fill with tears. Carla and David both sat there slack-jawed, and I'm sure my face had a similar look. They'll put your dating, I said weakly, feeling like the wind had been knocked out of me. Lily, please put your hand back on. She did as I asked, and when her hands left her face, I noticed the smile that she'd been hiding. Daddy, is that really you? Lily's question choked out through a mixture of laughter and tears. Yes. The response was immediate. We miss you so much, Dad. It's been so hard since you and Mom have been gone. W. E. M. I. S. S. Y. Oh, we miss you too. Holy shit. Carla couldn't contain herself any longer, and I found myself smiling at the use of the word we. Dad! I couldn't even hope to disguise the excitement in my voice. Is Mom there with you? Yes. My sister, now fully suffering through full-blown sobs, leaned her head over and rested it on David's shoulder. He stared down at his notepad, rereading the words, barely registering that she was there. I didn't know if he was stunned by what he was seeing or just horrified at how deluded we all were. David had never been much of a believer. Dad, can I... We all were. I wanted to keep the dialogue going. I am S-O-R... R-Y. I'm sorry. I raised an eyebrow at that response. What are you sorry about? I asked, unsure if I was speaking to my mother or my father. S-H-E. She's too cold, too hard for her. A smile fell from Lily's face, and the mood of the room became more solemn as David read the last sentence out loud. The planchette continued to move then without any more prompting. So cold here, so lonely. We miss you. We miss you. It's Daddy. Please help. Please. We need you. And after the last you, the planchette suddenly shot out from under our hands, paused just milliseconds over goodbye, and then fired across the room and hit the wall at roughly the same speed as the plate that morning. I jumped up away from the board in shock. Lily was now sobbing loudly as David held her, but his eyes remained fixed on the board as if it was the most alien object that he'd ever seen. Carla touched my hand with shaking fingers, and I looked down to see fear in her eyes. I don't understand, she said, and stood up. I'm so sorry, baby. She wrapped her arms around me, and it was only then that I noticed the wetness on my own cheeks. I hadn't cried since my mom's murder. I figured something in me had just broken that day. I mean, even when Dad passed, I didn't cry. Now, though, in this moment, the tears finally came. We tried to contact my parents again all night, but the planchette didn't move again. We'd hoped contacting our parents would make us feel better. You know, it would give us some sense of closure, but instead, it had devastated us. Lily, most of all. But instead, for hours, listening to the static of the spirit box, to hear a voice. As the weeks went on, Lily became quieter, more comforted. She retreated into herself, hardly speaking to anyone. The conversations with the Ouija board had made an impression on me too, but Lily had become obsessed. I gradually became less interested in contacting our parents again and more concerned about my sister's mental state. Then, one night I woke from that nightmare to a realer, more horrifying one. I answered my ringing phone to hear David's voice yelling through the earpiece. "Alex, your sister just took off." Took off? What do you mean? David's tone was panicked, and I rubbed the sleep from my eyes and tried to focus. "Alex, she's been way worse than she's on. Lily doesn't sleep anymore. She just sits in the kitchen and she listens to that damn little radio." The spirit box? Yeah, that fucking thing. She says she can hear your parents talking to her. I mean, I want to believe her, man, but I sat for hours. I didn't hear anything. Not a single thing. Jesus. Alex, I'm scared for her. Tonight, she was listening to it and she was talking back to it. Her voice woke me up. I couldn't understand exactly what she said, but she was crying, and then I heard her bolt out the door, slam it shut behind her. She went to my parents' house. It wasn't a question. I could feel it in my bones. I may not have known the full extent of what was happening, but I did know that something very, very bad had just happened to my sister. She couldn't cope with what the Ouija board had said to us. After all these years of pressing her sadness, she just cracked. You think? Yeah. So I'm thinking too. I know you have keys, man. Can you meet me there? I think we need to get her help. I sighed into the phone. I knew he was right. Lily may never forgive us, but I was quickly becoming convinced that she needed professional care. The weight of the decision to admit her somewhere felt smothering. I looked down at Carla, who was awake, staring warily out the window with lines of worry etched on her face. Let me get dressed. I could be at my parents in about 45 minutes. Let me see if I can talk to Lily. Thanks, Alex. I'm gonna head over now. I'm a lot closer, so I'll let her know that you're coming. We hung up, and I relayed the entire conversation to Carla. Despite my best efforts to keep her safe at home, she insisted on going with me, and when I protested, she challenged me to try and stop her. 10 minutes later, we were in the car and heading to my old house. The argument with Carla had delayed my departure, and we actually arrived at the house more than an hour later. Both Lily and David's cars were parked in the driveway, so I parked on the street, and Carla and I headed to the front door. I noticed as we climbed the porch that no lights were on inside. The front door was slightly ajar, and I took a deep breath before pushing it more than an hour later. A seeming void inside of a welcoming foyer. I'd never seen the house this dark before. As I let my eyes adjust, I listened intently for any sound, and all I can hear was the clicking of the spirit box rapidly changing channels through the soft static. I finally stepped inside and made my way down the hall, taking Carla's hand as she can hear. "Lily?" I yelled out. And I could hear the acute fear in my weak, shaking voice. I couldn't understand why I was suddenly so terrified in my own house, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I hugged the walls until we rounded the corner into the softly lit living room. A dull blue light was emitting from somewhere, and I could see Lily sitting in front of it. She was cross-legged in front on the floor, the spirit box in front of her, and her head was hung between her shoulder blades, blonde hair cascading down over her face. "Lily?" squeezing Carla's hand as I let go to walk towards my sister. I was halfway to her when Carla suddenly flipped on the light switch and screamed. Suddenly, I was blinded at first and disoriented by the screaming, but my eyes gradually made the adjustment. I blinked a few more times and found myself still facing Lily, who had remained sitting on the floor with a spirit box in front of her. Her forearms were cut from wrist to elbow. She was sitting in a pool of blood. David was there, lying next to her, stabbed. God knows how it was in the chest, the neck, the face. I can only assume it was him, as the body was damn near unrecognizable. I heard Carla take off down the hallway and slam the front door as she left the house. As I adjusted to my state of absolute shock, I scanned the room calmly before hysteria could finally set in. The walls were covered in writing, the same 3 phrases over and over again, written in fresh blood. It's Dad, we miss you, we need you. It's Dad, we miss you, we need you. I snapped out of my trance suddenly and stumbled over to Lily, begging every god I had ever heard to let her be alive somehow, to let me save her. I choked on my prayers as I rescued Lily's Lily out of the crimson puddle and screamed for Carla to call 911. Her skin lacked the warmth of life, and I pressed my face to hers, called 9 to wake up. My whispers falling on dead ears. I cried. The soft static of the spirit box played the score to my pain. How many eternities passed before Carla returned? I don't know, but I saw her standing in the doorway, talking to emergency services and staring at us. I cradled Lily's for back and forth. I could tell from the look of disgust and pity set on her face that Carla couldn't hear the sounds coming from the spirit box. Alex, it's Mom. We need you. It was faint, but it was her. My mother's voice was unmistakable. A year later, when the detectives finally called to let me know they were releasing my sister's things, I brought the spirit box home. I didn't let Carla know that I had it. She had never quite recovered from what she'd seen the night of the murder-suicide. The media had called Lily's case a tragic descent into madness. Carla and I couldn't have agreed more, but sometimes late at night, when Carla's asleep, I'll slip out of bed, and I'll sneak into the living room, and I'll pull the spirit box out from behind a stack of books. And I'll turn it on, just for a few seconds. But in those moments, I listen closely to the clicking sounds of the radio, quickly scanning through static. I strain to hear their words, the voices of my family, and sometimes I can hear them. In the few seconds I've heard them say many things, they tell me they need me. They love me and that it's lonely without me. They claim that it's cold. They beg me to join them. Lily says it's easy, that I could bring Carla with me. They say that we'll all be happy there. But there's something behind their voices. Something that voice bleeds through. Lily must have ignored the sound or blocked completely, because beneath their warm patience and desperate pleading, I can hear some laughing. Something inhuman. Those Voices in the Spirit Box by Dead and Spread. It's literally one of my favorites, because I hope it's also one of your guys' favorites now. It's like, absolutely love that one. Like I said, this does fall into terror. That was one of the big, like, one of your that I usually go for. And like, I've realized now, normally I'll do like a one of the kind of like a funny story in between there. I didn't do that this time, and man, I could feel it whenever that one. I'm not fully warmed up with my voice whenever I start doing this thing. What do you guys think? Okay, I'll do this. You guys have all your emotes open, right? You have like, my God, bees. You guys have your emotes open. Give me like the, give me one of, give me one of the. What do we have? Yeah, we have the Halloween ones. If I have a gross story, okay. If you guys want to hear the gross story, give me some candy corn.
Gross.
Or if you guys want to hear the showers, which is another terror story, give me a pumpkin. So which one do you guys want? You guys want the gross story, or do you guys want the showers? I'm seeing pumpkins. I'm seeing mostly pumpkins. I'll give you guys the showers. I do have like I said, I do have a gross story. We'll see how time goes. Maybe I can go ahead and finish off with one of the gross ones, but for the most part, I think like the showers is what I had ready to go. I thought you guys would like to be able to hear the showers because it's definitely a new one. You guys want gross? We'll see where time is. Okay, we'll see where time is, and if we get that one, I'll tell you guys about a fun little tapeworm. But for now,
Oh God.
Tapeworm.
I think the first story.
every area and all parts of the world has those area-specific urban legends that just refuse to die, right? Whether the stories are about a haunted asylum on the outside, we'll see a creature that lives in the nearby woods, or just a ghost that haunts a lonely stretch of road outside of town. There's always a common thread within the tales. No one has ever been to these places, seen the creature, or witnessed any hauntings with their own eyes. It's always a friend of a friend of a friend. Now, there are generation who will proclaim that they know someone whose brother's best friend's sister is that haunted house with them with 13 floors that used to blood and snakes and spiders, and it's so scary to ever made it all the way through. Those same people will swear by these stories without ever being able to provide a shred of evidence or a name of someone who could provide proof of any of these claims. Simply because, well, everyone around here knows that it's a true story. The storytellers eventually pass tales onto their children, who modify them just enough to keep up with changing times, and, well, the cycle continues. I'm as skeptical as anyone when it comes to those stories, seeing as I was like a junkie when I was younger, constantly searching for more terrifying stories about whatever area of the country that I was living in at the time. Made up and spread stories about haunted pizza parlors in New York, my cousin's encounter with a Jersey Devil, or how my grandfather encountered a feral, human-like demon creature in the woods of Colorado. I even broke the one rule with these stories by putting myself in them. This took guts in hindsight, because I had to make sure that I always told them the same story. But surprisingly, no one ever called my bluff. I like to think that I had some wonderful contributions to various urban legends around the Midwest and around the northeastern states. I moved around a lot. There were always a surge of joy whenever I would wander the halls at school and hear one of my classmates retelling my stories to another one of their friends, adding little bits here and there, like a massive game of telephone. I knew, of course, that the story was complete fiction, but I stood my ground whenever someone asked me about them. At school, act a little bit, speaking with a shaky voice, or looking at my class account a situation that I supposedly encountered myself. I suppose this aspect of my childhood had led to my current predicament, which I'll recount in full. Take from me. I've laid this little introduction out as a, aimed partially at those who would claim my story is fake, called it into question. I've been like the boy who cried wolf for years, but I assure you, with every ounce of honesty and integrity that I have, that this time the wolf is real. From my introduction, it is probably a part that I moved around the country quite a bit in my middle and high school years. Neither of my parents had anything to do with any branch of the armed forces. They simply didn't tend to hang around the single place for very long. I suppose it had some sort of effect on me, but I wasn't hurt by it or anything. Growing up, I was a complete ham. I made friends very easily. I was often the class clown, and because of that, I was often disliked by my teachers. Again, this was never an issue, usually in another state by the time the next semester rolled around. My friendships were often fleeting, as were any positive relationships that I ever had with my teachers. Because of the events that followed, my memory of one teacher in particular is probably slightly skewed, but well, I'll attempt to give the least biased version of our friendship that I can. Mr. Mays was one of my social studies teachers in the early years of my high school experience. Being older now, I can understand how horrible children are to deal with around that age, and I respect him to no end for the way that he was able to connect with his students. I mean, he seemed like one of us. He talked like us, made pop culture references that were pretty current, listened to cool music. Sometimes he would say hell or damn, which that was pretty cool, right? A teacher that swore even a little bit, that was the epitome of cool as a freshman. My memories of Mr. Mays mostly stem from the way that he really got into anything that he was doing. The incidents travel anywhere had the entire class hooked in an instant. Mr. Mays was the coolest teacher ever in my eyes. Being adventurous college kids, the group didn't bring a map. There was no time constraints, so they just kind of drove in the general direction that they wanted to go, and eventually found a town to stay in or someplace that looked interesting. He told us that after spending a week in Colorado, he and his friends had to travel through miles and miles of corn plains and more corn. He assumed that they were in either Nebraska or Kansas when they decided to pool their extra cash and stay in a hotel for a night. They settled into a motel in some town that Mr. Mays could barely remember, and one of his friends realized that they were somewhere near his grandfather's farm. He wasn't entirely sure where it was, but being adventurous college kids, they decided to just get a quick refund from the motel and try to contact their friend's grandpa. Now, they were unable to get a hold of the grandpa on the phone, so the group figured it would be fun to just show up. Mr. Mays' friend was adamant that his grandfather would just take them in and feed them without a moment of hesitation. So, the group set out with an hour of sunlight seeking the salvation of a comfortable house to stay in. In Kansas, or Nebraska, wherever it may have been, there aren't a whole lot of natural landmarks that could guide lost travelers. Any directions given to someone who didn't live around the area basically amounted to a couple of miles to the corn, then take a right and go down a dirt road to the other corn, and there should be some wheat on your right. So, as is the case in most scary stories, the group got lost. Everyone wanting to admit defeat, they drove into the night making wrong turns every 5 minutes until they found themselves on a wooded road that Mr. Mays' friend was certain that his grandparents lived off of. Mr. Mays described the road as basically a dark path to hell. Wasn't entirely sure how true this was because he got very excited and ridiculous with his explanation of the trees that almost tried to grab the car and the red eyes of countless animals looking at them from the darkness. Regardless, the typical explanation worked on most of the class. Everyone was terrified. So, the group of guys drove on this dark road for 15 minutes before they came to a clearing, and with lights in it. It would seem to be a silo road. They figured that at the very least, the people who lived there would be able to help them. Grandparents lived. The whole idea of everyone knows everyone in these people who live in the country fueled this hope. They pulled the car up near the building. Find when they were out of the car that it appeared to be like that kind of place where one would store a whole bunch of chickens, not really a home. But still, the lights were on. For the car, they would give it a try. They approached the building as a group, looking in the semi-open sliding door to find a big, empty room. Hanging fluorescent lights lit the room like it was daytime, and they couldn't see a soul. There were no cars, One of Mr. Mays' friends was convinced he'd seen someone as they pulled up, so they decided to go inside and see if there was an office or something where someone might still be working. A huge place lit up like this. There was no doors on the inside. Again, it was a building, empty hall. So the group roamed around the property and over towards the silo. As they got closer, they noticed what appeared to be a cellar door. Now, at this point, I noticed Mays telling the entire class to learn from his idiocy. He told us that he hadn't seen many horror movies before that time. Didn't think twice about approaching a creepy cellar door in the middle of a dark, scary foreign place. He said that approaching that door was one of the biggest regrets of his life. Mr. Mays let the whole class know that he was going to tell us as much as he deemed appropriate about the experience. He felt that we were mature enough to handle it, but advised anyone that was squeamish to leave the class early. Well, several students quietly gathered their things and walked out the door, a couple of them being stoners who saw this as an opportunity to smoke behind the school. The next class. I didn't even give the announcement a second thought. Like I said, I was, and I still am, a sucker for this kind of stuff. Mr. Mays was telling a story better than anything I had ever conjured up. I wanted to learn from this guy, and even though I didn't believe much of the story, I was still interested. After the class had thinned a bit, Mr. Mays continued with the story. He told the remaining few that he and his friends ever caught that cellar door, releasing a smell that he only described as the most my senses have ever experienced. Now, the group was no concerned with finding the owner of the property, but was now set on finding the source of the smell. They went down the steps into the cellar, which was in a single bulb, spaced sporadically along the ceiling of a long hallway. No one spoke. Things had gotten too strange. Space lined with metal sheeting similar to the roofings on the farms. The whole sheets crooked, and the ceiling constantly lowered and rose like a tunnel, and then never touched up. There were sections where the boy almost crouched in order to pass. The worst part of it, Mr. Mays told us, was that the light bulbs continuously flickered, some acting like a strobe light, making it very difficult to move through the winding and unsafe hallways. In hindsight, he was certain that his mind was some tricks on him, but he remembered seeing flashes of things that couldn't be there. When you were that focused on something, but your mind can do that to you. It can simply things or people that aren't there. That to you. The hallway, and I was so on the edge of my seat. The halls were seeming to go on forever. Mr. Mays guessed that they were somewhere under the creepy forest they had driven through when they found a door, but he couldn't be sure. There, they came upon a door after walking for what felt like a mile. It was simple and wooden, but it looked like it belonged outside of a suburban home. Had a nice design, seemed to be freshly painted red, and had a very nice knob on it. It was a door that belongs at the entrance to a nice house, not one that would be sitting in a dirt tunnel in the middle of nowhere. His friend walked towards the door because of the flashing light bulb and increasingly uncertainty about the stability of the surrounding walls. He turned to the group, the rest of which were nervous at the very least and attempted to lighten the mood with a laugh before he said, "I should probably knock first." Mr. Mays' friend grabbed the steel knocker and hit it against the door several times, mockingly, but quietly uttering, "Is anyone home?" The group waited about 30 seconds before their tension broke. The guy next to the door shrugged his shoulders and went to walk back to his friends, but as he did, the light bulb between them surged and exploded. The boys shielded their eyes and looked back to their lone friend by the door. As he lowered his hands, one of the metal sheets of the makeshift roof dropped. The edge of the sheet fell directly on the boy's forearm, slicing it open and sending a wave of blood down his face. The impact apparently knocked him out, and he fell back against the door, knocking it open in the process. The entirety of the group rushed through the dim light to their friend, barely noticing the seemingly pitch-black room that now lay before them. Mr. Mays was the first to make it to his friend's side. He lifted the guy's head onto his arms, and immediately taking off his jacket and putting it over his forehead to attempt to stop the bleeding. Once the group had calmed down, Mr. Mays noticed that the arm that had been bracing his friend's head was soaking wet. He was confused about this and was attempting to sort it out when one of his friends started talking. He said something along the lines of, "The lights have to go." But Mr. Mays took notice. "You know, when you turn off a light," he said to the class, "and everything is almost pitch black, except for that the light of the bulb dying out or like cooling down. It was like that, but there was so many of them. At least 20 light bulbs had lit the room seconds ago, and now only looked like little stars in the darkness. That was definitely terrifying. But that wasn't the scariest thing. There was still a very dim light coming from the hallway behind them, and though it was weak, it lit the room up just enough to see the shape of tens of people standing less than 10 feet in front of them. Mr. Mays say something else as one of the bulbs to their right flickered to life. And let me interrupt at this point and say that Mr. Mays was a generally playful guy. He had the tone, a voice that made you just kind of want to respond. Basically, he could say, "Let's go jump off a cliff, guys." And you would want to respond with, "All right, Mr. Mays, show us the way." And that's a ridiculous statement. He was a charismatic guy, right? The whole story up to this point had been told like a campfire story. He had the voice inflections of someone attempting to be mysterious and scary, which worked, but it was noticeable. At this point in his tale, I recall it changing completely. He was no longer attempting to spook everyone. I could tell that this section was difficult for him. I mean, either he was a very good actor, or it was really a terrifying memory for him to relive. He told us that light bulb came to life and illuminated the group of people in front of him. In the dim light, he could see children, at least 20 of them, in just that visible light. They were all dressed in nightgowns that looked to be tattered and torn, stained dark with something. Their hair was long. Every single one of them looked like they hadn't had a haircut since birth. Some of the children were almost completely obscured by the length of it. Every single one of them didn't have seen a shower or a nice bath in their entire life. Mr. Mays told us that the most terrifying part of the whole thing was that none of the children were moving. They were all standing, staring, most of them only visible from the faint light that didn't their eyes. His whole group was paralyzed with fear for several seconds when they heard what sounded like an animal in the distance yelping. The way it was described was like the sound of a dog crying, multiplied by 10. This spurred the group to life. Just as the children began to step forward, his friends grabbed the injured one and lifted him out of the room and into the hallway in an instant. Mr. Mays took another second to move and had difficulty finding his bearings. He reached to his left in an attempt to find a wall to lean against, and ended up finding a handle, then pulled hard, never losing his vision on the children. He bolted for the door right as he noticed what he had grabbed onto. It was a shower head protruding from the cement wall, reaching maybe a foot into the room. There was something leaking from it, but it was too dim to tell what it was. He realized that it had been leaking onto him, but he didn't care. There were now children stammering towards him as an animal cried. He realized that his friend was seriously injured. As he left the room, he made a point to emphasize that he could make out several more shower heads on the wall near the single dim light bulb. "This is why I call them the showers," Mr. Mays told the class. I was transfixed, sitting as far forward at my desk as would allow, bracing for more. "I slammed the red door behind me," he said, "and ran through that hallway faster than I'd ever run before. Made it back to the car, and we drove out of there like a bat out of hell." A couple of students laughed at his use of the word hell. So when you're out trick-or-treating tonight, make sure that you know exactly where you're headed. And don't go out in any abandoned farmhouses. I mean, there aren't many around here, but you're all smart kids, except Jerry. The class laughed, and the mood lightened as the bell rang for passing period. Mr. Mays turned the lights on and thanked everyone for listening, reminding them about the paper due next week, and told us to have a safe and happy Halloween. Students all around me were abuzz with theories about the story that they had just heard. It was some kind of crazy Nazi hideout, said one kid. I think they were all ghost babies that were, killed by a dog, said another. I couldn't theorize in the slightest. I was still caught up in the moment, the way that Mr. Mays had told us that story, the details he included in it. Felt like we didn't get the whole story. So a couple days later, I stayed after class, and I asked him about how it really ended. What happened to his friend? He laughed, and he said that his friend was fine. That it was honestly, he whispered this part, probably due to some of the drugs they were on at the time. Mr. Mays winked at me as if to say, don't tell anyone about the drugs bit, kid, and I smiled and I left. I lived in that town a couple of months, and then rapidly moved halfway across the country to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I twisted the story around, I told it, and around campfires as I got older, and it was always a hit, but I always changed the ending, letting a friend die of blood loss, or from being dragged away by the children. It wasn't until I went to college that I got a chance to talk to Mr. Mays again. I went to college in northwestern New York. Not for any reasons associated with the story. College was a fun time for me. I continued being the same ham I had always been. It wasn't until sometime around my junior year that I ran into Mr. Mays at a bar that I had frequented. Now, initially, I couldn't be sure that the person I saw laying with his head buried in his arm at the bar was Mr. Mays. The only trait that grabbed my attention was a sweater that he used to wear on his birthday during class. The shirt simply read, "I'm the birthday boy." I told my group that I would grab a table and that I would join them in a second. And then I'd walk over to the man at the bar. "Mr. Mays?" I said. And the man looked up. The man took a second to really look at my face before he smiled. He put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Hey there, son. How have you been?" I could smell some strong whiskey on his breath. His cheeks were flushed. The look in his eyes told me he was 3 sheets to the wind. Probably had no idea who I was. "Mr. Mays is Jack. I was a student of yours a couple of semesters about 6 or so years ago." His face changed a bit, and a genuine look of recognition set in. He took a calmer tone, smiled, and said, "How have you been, Jack?" And we talked for a solid 20 minutes. I told him what I'd been doing for the last several years. He told me apparently he was still teaching at the same school, doing the same old shtick, as he called it. I asked if everything was all right, and he said that they were good. Good as they'd ever been, or as good as they were ever going to get. Took me a while to realize that I was an adult that was having a conversation with another adult. Every time I'd spoken to Mr. Mays previously, I had been in a student-teacher relationship, but now I was just a guy having a drink with a friend at the bar. My friends eventually left, and I continued to drink with Mr. Mays. He told me all about his divorce, his kids, things I never would have asked or cared about previously, but now I cared. He was a real person to me, not just an idol anymore. This was a guy who had real problems, not the infallible teacher that I once thought he was. It had been several hours before I even brought up his story about the showers. I told him all about my history with urban legends and scary stories, and he just laughed. And when I mentioned the story that he had told us years ago, he almost seemed uncomfortable. He finished his whiskey, signaled for another, and then turned to me and got very serious. "Listen, Jack, I don't know why I keep telling that story year after year." His words were slurred, or my hearing was messed up. We were both sufficiently blitzed at this point. It's what my therapist told me to do when I was younger. I had to tell people it to come to grips with it, or I don't know, some shit. He took a big swig of his drink. Your therapist, I said. Mr. Mays laughed heartily and looked at me. Of course, Jack. Do you think that something like that wouldn't fuck a person up? I was confused, but I smiled nonetheless. Things had just gotten very strange. You said you were all on drugs or something, right? No one was too terribly hurt. You were all okay, right? He got almost cartoonish with his sadness the next several seconds. Of course we didn't, Jack. Why do you think I'm here right now? I was puzzled, quickly filled with 1,000 questions that I wanted to ask him, but I let him carry on. Tim he didn't make it, Jack. His laugh turned suddenly into tears. Fucking took him. They did. I don't even know. Cops told us that we were just drunk, that he wandered off, got taken by the wildlife. He didn't know. He didn't see it, Jack. I was absolutely stone-faced at this point. Mr. Mays was carrying along like I knew the actual story, but I didn't. His friend disappeared. I didn't know. I wish they'd found his body, though. Then we could have shown him. Oh, that's a bad place, Jack. I don't know anything else to say. It's a bad place. He carried on for a couple of minutes more about his friend and the fun that they had before they went on that trip, and I let him talk. It was only a few minutes later that his phone rang. Oh, hello, sweetheart. He whispered into the phone. Yeah, I'll be out in a second. I love you, baby. Then the person on the other end hung up the phone and Mr. Mays got up to leave. It's been nice seeing you, Jackie. Got a good head on your shoulders, boy. Make sure you use it. He began to walk out of the bar. Hey, Mr. Mays! I yelled at him. Yeah, Jack? He turned back towards me. Where'd you say all that shower business took place? Where? Didn't I mention it's somewhere outside of Broken Bow, Nebraska? Fucking hell on earth, if you ask me. Mr. Mays walked out of the bar after waving to me, running into the wall before eventually finding the door. That was the last time I would see him. I'd never be able to tell him the impact that his story had on me. He'd never know the story about the trip we took after graduation, almost mimicking the one that he and his friends had made. He'd never know that the things he saw at that place were real. And why? Because he died a month later. His liver failed on him. It's all right, though, because his family was with him in the hospital room. Got to die around people that cared about him. That's all I can ask for a man like that. I experienced that place, too, several years later. That's where my story turns. The memory is clear enough. Let me see if I can get this real quick. 1 second. I am like 2 minutes, and I have a funny one I can do. I have a funny, gross story I could do, and I can fill it in. So we do 3 stories, just like I said I always do. Yeah, give me the candy corn. I got it, boys. Don't you worry. I got your best. I do cloud reader. I got you guys. Please, Kindle.
Candy corn chowder.
Put the snacks away, people. You're not gonna need them.
2 minutes, baby. Let's go.
Candy corn, give me all of it.
2 minutes.
Nom nom.
I'm
allergic.
5 in the morning.
Okay. One of my best friends, Vincent Venicava. Oh my God, boobies. One of my best friends, Vince Venicava, used to could write books. I do books for him all the time. I do audiobooks. I love the books that he wrote. However, he has a couple of books he pulled off the shelves. Why? He didn't like the way they were. I think they're amazing. I think he did a great job. This is one of the story from a book that he pulled off of Amazon because he didn't like it, but I love it. This is Thoughts of a Modest Murderer by Vincent Venicava. She'll be making her way to the bathroom. It won't be long now before I have my first kill. This is so exciting. Okay, just as I planned, I stand here in the shower with my knife ready and drawn, and when she pulls back the curtain, well, it'll be curtains for her. I made a funny. Ah, here she is. I'm just going to take a little peek so I can get into the perfect position to pounce. Well, isn't this a treat? She's, undressing in front of me. Yes, darling, Daddy likes. Slide out of those jeans, why don't you? Would you look at that bottom? A very sexy rump, if I do say so myself. I'm gonna enjoy running the knife through you, honey. Okay. Time to get ready. She's approaching the shower now. Here she comes. Oh. She's sitting on the toilet. I wish I could give her some privacy, but this is kind of a unique situation. I guess everything will be fine, just as long... Oh, God. Is she taking... She is. Well, I'm afraid this is terribly embarrassing. Lord, it stinks in here. I honestly didn't know the human body was capable of creating a stench so foul. Oh, what the hell did she have for lunch today? It smells like 3-week-old cat food that's been left outside of a dumpster from a sushi restaurant. Oh, I can taste it. Ugh. Jesus, why can I taste it? How about a courtesy flush, darling? Oh, what were you raised on? Oh, never mind that. Even barn animals would be offended by that putrid concoction you heard it, that pungent porcelain pot you're sitting on. Oh, my God. She's picking her nose now. Oh, that's it. This woman's lost all sex appeal as far as I'm concerned. Christ, she's really digging deep, isn't she? The hell's she trying to do? Scratch her brain? No, you don't. No, you don't. Don't you do it. Don't you eat that booger, young lady. Oh, she ate it. Oh, unbelievable. Okay. Stiff upper lip. You can get through this. Sure. Things haven't exactly gone as expected, but that doesn't mean this can't still be a successful outing. She appears to be finishing up, anyway. Just straighten up. Wipe the tears from your eyes. Get back into position. You don't want a nickname like the Blubbering Butcher or the Crybaby Killer, do you? No, that's not scary. Well, of course she'd wipe back to front. Nothing surprises me anymore. Hey, wait, where are you going? No, don't go. I think you might need to take a shower after dropping that bomb, Crapperella. You aren't clean. Oh, at least wash your hands. That's Thoughts of a Modest Murderer. Thanks for coming out to the Creepypasta reading. I hope you guys all have fun at HorrorCon 2025. Thanks, guys. Have a happy Halloween.
Just if I get like a little